Good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you're listening from. Welcome to the Focused and Fulfilled podcast. I'm your host, Althea Walters. I'm a leadership and productivity coach. And this is the show where we dive into real stories, powerful strategies, and life-changing insights. Now, we explore what it truly takes to stay focused, achieve big goals, and live a life of purpose and fulfillment. Now, today's episode is a powerful one, and we're going to be looking at midlife. And we're joined by my guest, Tamara Cortoos, a passionate advocate expert on helping persons navigate midlife with clarity, confidence, and strength. So, if you have ever asked yourself, is this normal? What is it that I'm going through? Why am I feeling like this? Well, this episode is for you. Welcome, Tamara. Welcome to the podcast. It is so good to have you.
Hi, Althea, and thank you so much for that very lovely introduction and for having me on your podcast. Yes, indeed. My name is Tamara Cortoos. I'm based in Belgium, and I'm a midlife coach. So I'm very excited to talk about midlife and all the beautiful things that people can expect at this stage in life.
All right, wonderful. So, Tamara, tell me. So, we especially you're going through life journey, right? And
Mhm.
the things are happening. We all go through our different life cycles. The things are happening as we're speaking, but sometimes we don't understand it. But I want you to tell me about your background, your journey to be specializing in this field, specializing on this topic of midlife. What happened? Talk to us.
Oh, yes. Oh, what happened? There's actually there's actually quite a story to that. Um, Midlife actually hit me personally really hard. There were a couple of things that happened in my life that, looking back, it's clear, but at the time, I just felt very confused and I didn't really understand any of what was happening to me. I I'd always thought that I followed the normal script of life, the you study, you get a job, you get married, you get kids, you build the career. I ticked all those boxes and I really thought I'm doing really well here. I'm originally from Belgium, but I've lived in Barcelona, in London, in Sydney. I moved back to Belgium, took my family with me. I thought doing very great. And then in my early 40s, things started to kind of almost unravel. I noticed different changes in myself. And the first one was that my career had lost its spark. I have always loved my job. Like, I did it for 25 years. I loved it. And then one day, I didn't anymore. I felt like I was stuck and I wasn't learning or growing anymore.
Right.
And that was for me a very strange feeling, like feeling like I'd hit a dead end, I wasn't really going anywhere anymore. I also noticed that something that I'd never done before, but I started comparing myself with other people, my peers, friends, family. And I looked at their lives and I thought they have it all figured out, their lives, their job titles, their successes. I would look at all of that and I would think, why don't I have this? And that was such an irrational thought to have because I had it all as well. Like on paper, I had a lot going for me, but I didn't appreciate it anymore. I just kept thinking, like, I got everything I've ever wanted, but it's still not enough. I started to regret decisions I had made earlier in my life. I just couldn't stop thinking about all the opportunities I didn't take. I studied economics, but what if I had studied law and become a human rights lawyer, as I always thought I would become, and I hadn't done it? Or what if I had accepted to do a PhD at my old university? I said no to that offer. I'd been shutting doors and I kept thinking like, oh, what if I hadn't done all that? And that all sounds like all the questions that I had were career related, but that's not really the case because I felt really restless, you know. I looked at my life and it was this loop of responsibilities. And I very often thought, how did my life end up like this? You know, it was so easy to wonder if I'd wasted my best years because
Yeah.
I always thought that by my 40s, I'd have it all figured out. And I didn't. And also, I looked in the mirror. Look, you know, you're a woman too. We look in the mirror from time to time, right? And I'd never been worried about aging until I looked in the mirror and I thought, what happened? You know, what happened to me? I'm getting old. And I looked at other women my age and I thought, they look so much better. How are they doing that? Again, that comparing. But I'm a really pragmatic, solution-oriented person. So with
Yeah.
everything happening in my head, I thought, okay, you know what? The main challenges I seem to be facing are career-related. So let's focus on that and find a solution, right? So I did. I retrained. I got certified in change management. I was ready to pivot into something completely new to me.
Right.
And then actually, that's when the moment came that changed everything for me because I went to my very first job interview and I was talking about my experience, the knowledge, the skills I could bring to the table, how keen I was to use all of that in this new role and a new industry. And then this HR manager turns to me, he looks at me and he's like, it's really great. You've got a lot to offer, but I'm really sorry. We can't hire you because you're too old. And I was like in complete shock. You know,
Yeah.
I did not know what to say to that because I was just sitting there looking at him and thinking, like, how can I be too old for something? I was only 44 at the time.
Right.
So I was saying that to my face, but it got me really worked up. It got me pretty angry actually, because I was thinking like, there's so much already going on in my life, you know. I was having all these questions and these doubts and I didn't know what to do. And I finally thought I had a solution and I went for it. And then someone threw that back in my face. And on top of that, he added ageism as well. What is this? So I thought, well, if no one gives me a solution to dealing with midlife, because by that time I had figured out that everything that was happening to me were actually all signs of midlife and I couldn't find solutions. I was like, okay, I will figure it out myself. I will find the solution.
Right.
So what I did was I just threw myself into research. I researched everything I could about midlife, psychology, social science, leadership, coaching, communications. I was reading all the academic papers. I was taking loads of courses, getting certified. I spoke to lots of other midlifers. And as it turned out, they were just as lost as I was with this whole midlife thing. But to process it all, I started writing things down. You know, everything that I learned, that I heard, that I read, I started writing it down. And after a while, I ended up with a manual, really, like a midlife guide, something that explains what you're going through in midlife and why that is,
Yeah.
and what the different steps are that you need to take to turn midlife into something really positive and powerful. And it was a lot more than the challenges I was going through at the time. And then I thought, you know what? I have this now. I have this manual. It would be quite silly of me to just sit on this because I know from all the conversations that I've had, there's so many other people who could benefit from it.
Yeah.
So I thought I'll share it, you know. So that's how my business, Midlife Crossroads Academy, was born. And also my interest into coaching other midlifers to deal with the issues and the questions and you know, the doubts, the challenges, whatever it is, whatever you call it. But what midlife is all about, just helping them find their journey through it. Sorry, that's a very long answer to your question, but that's the background.
Tamara, no problem. Wonderful answer. You broadened the conversation. I heard everything. I loved everything because now I have questions. So remember, I asked you, I'm like, what happened? Because Something
Yeah,
would have had to happen to bring you to the point of just focusing on midlife and how to navigate it. And
yeah.
so, Tamara, I have a lot of questions. So here goes.
Okay,
Let me
shoot.
just say some of the things that I heard first, right? And these are real issues. Like, I think that some of these things we heard that they're coming, right?
Mhm.
And but we're not equipped. We're not equipped to deal with them. So you were faced with a lot of things. You knew you felt confused,
Yeah,
right? You felt confused. You didn't understand what was happening. You're like, okay, I did all the things that they said I should do in life. I had all the achievements, the whatever societal goals are there. It's the marriage, it's the kids, it's the house, it's to get a good work, everything. No, we're here and we still feel unfulfilled, we still feel confused, and we start compare ourselves with other people.
yes.
And that comparison, I always say comparison is a thief of joy, right?
It is. It's
And
so, but you can't stop yourself at the, in that moment, you just can't stop yourself from doing it.
yeah. And so then you start to regret the decisions that you took in life or the decisions that you did not take, right? And it becomes more difficult. It's like we're hammering ourselves into a hole the more we advance through life. And that is not an easy thing. And I find that a lot of people struggle with that. Some people will say, hey, what's going on? This is happening with me, but some people will not speak. So having resources available for them is a very important part of the puzzle. But the question was, how did we end up here? How and why? How and why did we end up here? And the fact that you were faced with, oh, I'm getting old. Am I
Older,
getting
old,
old?
older.
Older, you're so right. Older,
Old
older.
and old, yeah.
So I feel that, sometimes when we're at this phase,
Mhm.
sometimes you don't feel relevant.
Yeah.
You
Or
don't feel,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah. And that's what happened when you had that turning point. It's like your relevance was questioned. You had all of this experience, you had all of this contribute, but you are not for us. You are no longer relevant. That's what they were saying.
I know. I know. And I was too young to have that happen to me. I mean, at 44, I would still have to, I live in Belgium now. You have to work here till you're 67 before you're allowed to retire. So I
Yes.
still had 23 years left of my career, which was virtually almost as long as I had been working already by that point. So I still had the same in front of me as I had behind me. It's crazy to then tell me I'm too old to hire. Well, I'm not going to disappear in 5 years. I still have 20 more years to go.
Yeah. Yeah, and on average, the retirement age is usually between, I mean, in the Caribbean, it's between 60 to 65,
Mhm.
for women, I believe. So you have a whole life ahead of you.
Yes, indeed, indeed. And keep in mind as well, all the experience that I had at that point, I would have brought all of that with me, all that knowledge, all those skills. Like, it's crazy to then tell me that I'm too old, right? Because that's basically telling me that my experience doesn't count for much.
Yeah,
That's unbelievable. I found that absolutely crazy. And on top of that, of course, it's illegal. Eh? Like, they can't tell you that you're too old for anything. But
yeah. So
anyway.
is there a age definition of when midlife occurs in life? Like, is there a span, a time
Well, it
period?
used to be between your mid 40s and mid 60s. That was always the idea. That's what midlife is. But really, midlife is not so much about an age anymore. It's about a moment or a series of moments when you start to look at your life and you ask yourself specific questions like, is this really what I want?
Right.
Or what's next in life? Or where did all the years go? When you're at that point, that's really the start of midlife. And maybe you're like I was, like feeling restless in that job that you once loved, or your kids are growing up and your role as a parent is changing, or maybe you've ticked all of those boxes, the career, the family, and something still doesn't feel right. That's really when midlife is knocking on your door. And what we noticed is that whereas it used to be mid-40s to mid-60s, it's actually stretching in both directions. These days, it's quite acceptable to say that midlife starts around 35 already.
Yes.
And it stretches to about 75. That's a really wide range. And people sometimes go like, but at 75, you don't really ask yourself anymore, like, what's next in my life? But people still do, because it's about the mindset, right? When you ask questions like that, you indicate that you want change, you want something different, you want to grow. So as long as you ask those questions, you're still in midlife.
Great. Because I realize that you're right. It's not so much defined on an age, because I used to think that midlife crises occur in older people, right? By the time you're 60 or you're 70, that's what I used to think until I got my rude awakening. So I understand there are persons who in their 30s, early 30s, or, are having that kind of self-reflection and feel like they're at a point where it's not moving, like, where am I going? So I believe at that point, though, Tamara, it's like we're questioning our self-worth, right? So how do you tie that to the evolving life and midlife, and how do we manage that?
Well, would you mind if I just take a step back, because you mentioned something that I would like to address as well, and that's because you mentioned the word midlife crisis.
Sure, go ahead.
And it's something I want to go back to, because I know I meet lots and lots of people, and I know that as soon as you mention the word midlife, they automatically go crisis, right?
Yes, that's
association is there. No. That's totally okay, totally normal. But it's something that I would really want to get away from, because midlife is not a crisis. Actually, when you look at the research, when you look at let me tell you where the word midlife crisis comes from. It comes from Canada. In 1965, there was this psychoanalyst who did, believe this or not, he did a literature study about male artists from the past, people like Michelangelo and, Picasso and that. So he looked at their lives and he noticed that once they hit around their early 40s, mid 40s, he noticed that their output became less. So they weren't producing as much art anymore. And he attributed that to some kind of depressive feeling that they had. They were hitting a wall, so there was a reason for it. And he called that a midlife crisis. So he based that on a sample of maybe like just over 100 people. It was all men. No,
all men.
All men. But he published a paper around that. And that's where the whole idea about a midlife crisis took off, right? Suddenly, it was like this biological certainty that we all have to have a midlife crisis once we hit a certain age. And it's crazy to think that, because, I mean, look around your own friends, your own family. Not everybody goes into crisis when they hit 45. I don't know how many people who own a red sports car that they bought at 45.
No.
I know none. It is true that some people don't deal very well with the fact that these questions come up in midlife, right? Once it all starts and the challenges come in and they start asking, who am I? Some people don't deal very well with that.
Yes.
It's a quarter of midlifers. 1 in 4 goes a little bit, off the rails, but that still means that 3 in 4 don't. They just work through it and they learn to deal with it. No crisis for them.
Yeah.
So the midlife crisis, to me, it's partly in our minds. Like, it is a reality to some extent for some people, but definitely not for all of us.
Yeah. But you know what? I'm so appreciative of this clarification that you have given me, Tamara, and this education, because it's the first time I'm getting that clarity, right?
Is it? Oh, I'm
Is it?
glad. I'm
Yeah,
glad.
thank you. Thank you
Big
very
part of
much.
what I still do is educating people on, it sounds patronizing, I don't mean it that way, but to explain what midlife actually is and
Right.
explaining it's not a crisis. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's like, it's ingrained in our language.
Mm-hmm.
And so it will be difficult to take it out. So
Yes.
every time we say midlife, like synonymously, right?
Yes.
And so it's good when you can understand the distinction so that you can know how to then act, right? So
Mm-hmm.
thank you for that. So now that we're trying to identify what midlife is,
Yes,
I'm doing good, Tamara. I'm trying right here.
you are. You're doing great.
All right. So, and then I wanted you to touch on, okay, so when we get to the point of midlife, we realize that we're questioning self-worth, self-relevance,
Mm-hmm.
right? What are some of the things that you would guide persons, and why do you think we question our self-worth, and how can we guide the persons who are at this point of midlife to kind of get them over the hump?
Sure. To go back to the reason first, basically, what people are questioning who they are, right? They're asking some real existential questions. Who
Yeah,
am I? What do I want? Where am I going next? And they start asking that because there are things in their lives that are changing. They're not as satisfied with the job anymore, or maybe they've climbed the ladder and they get to the top and then they suddenly realize, I don't like the view, or they just feel a bit empty, like they're drifting in life, like they don't really have purpose or meaning, or they just notice that their role in life is changing, right? It can be for so many reasons.
right.
Some people literally come to midlife and they go like, my knees make a funny sound when I get up. Oh my God, I'm getting older. That might literally just be enough to trigger the realization I'm in midlife, you know?
Yes.
But there are ways to work through that, to navigate midlife, and be confident and thrive in it as well. It's I don't know if you've ever heard of Erik Erikson, and it's a funny name. You never forget it once you hear it. He was a German psychoanalyst. He came up with a model called the 8 stages of psychosocial development. Basically,
Mm.
what he did is he mapped out how we grow and change throughout life in 8 stages. So each stage comes with a challenge that shapes who we become. And in midlife, the question, according to him, was, are you growing and giving back, or are you stuck and disconnected? So he
Yeah.
called it generativity on the one hand. So you feel this deep concern for others. You want to make a meaningful impact. Maybe the easiest way is always, or the most straightforward way is through raising kids. Once you have kids, you're automatically concerned and making a meaningful impact. But you can do it in different ways, like mentoring younger colleagues, leading a team, creating something valuable for the world. You're using your skills and experience to contribute, and you get fulfillment from that. So that's one side of the coin. On
Right.
the other side, there's stagnation, and that's that stuck feeling where nothing really excites you anymore. You're not growing, you're not making a difference. You may be feeling a bit disconnected from the world. You're living on autopilot. You don't really have a sense of purpose. So the big choice in midlife is, do you choose stagnation? Do you retreat into yourself and just let life pass you by?
Right.
Or Do you step up and share what you've learned? Do you choose generativity? So the only way to be confident and thrive in midlife is to choose generativity, to open yourself up to the world and navigate midlife challenges. It goes beyond just saying, I'm struggling. It really requires a mindset change.
Yeah.
You need to take action. You need to create real change in your life. So what I find is that, as I just mentioned, like you really need to change your mindset. You need to reframe midlife, not as a decline, but as an opportunity for a reset. You can reset your life, right? Instead of seeing midlife as too late for everything, too late to try a new career, too late to whatever it is, too late to run a marathon, you can view it as a pivot point, like your chance to realign your life with what's really important to you, right? For me, that meant to stop focusing on what I hadn't achieved by
Right.
age 50 and instead ask, what do I want my next 10 years to look like? And just work from there, focusing on the future and all the things I could still do instead of focusing on the past and all the things I didn't have or didn't do. So generativity also means redefining what success means to you. I mean, we're all conditioned to measure success by a job title or a financial milestone or external validation. But real success is about living a way that feels fulfilling. So as soon as you stop tying your identity to, say, a job title, you make room within yourself to look for purpose. In my case, that was helping others through Midlife Crossroads Academy, but it wasn't easy even for me either to let go of society's version of success, but I found it really worth it. So those are just a couple of ways that people can actually work through midlife and the challenges as well.
Yeah. Wonderful. I realized that you touched on so many things, including giving us tools and tips, including explaining that cycle, the 8 steps, you call it the 8 stages.
Yep.
And I think it brings into perspective because a lot of us, we're not really present to the fact that our life is changing. Our
No.
experiences, we're just changing. And I realized that the word change has come up in a lot when you spoke, that we are going through changes and it's the state of where we are now that leads us to question everything that is happening. And so that a reset is so important. But we sometimes can't identify that we're going through the change because life feels so, we're just continuing without pausing. So sometimes you're distracted. You don't know. We don't know what to look out for. We don't realize that we're going through a change.
You don't, but you feel it though. You always, I mean, I speak to so many people. They might not be able to articulate it, but they always know deep down something is not right.
Yeah.
Even if they're really busy and life is happening, people always know because they wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and they're lying there looking at the ceiling and they know something is not right in my life. They can't put their finger on it, but once you start asking questions, it always comes back that they already knew. I don't have to point it out to them. They always know.
Yeah, that's so true. You feel it,
You feel it in your gut. You feel it.
Yeah. But separating it to show us that, okay, as we're going through the life stages, what are we choosing? If you're in a state of, are you going to choose to stay in the state of stagnation versus choosing to step up, right?
Yep.
And I think that even how you explained it, it seemed to me, and you can let me know if I'm correct, that choosing to stay in stagnation is a point of always looking back, looking at the past, and then choosing to step up is like the future. Where am I going? What do I want to do? What do I want to contribute? Is that it?
Yes, it is. And also in stagnation, you're not contributing, right? You're shutting yourself off. It's more than just looking only at the past. It's basically you tell yourself, I stopped growing. This is it, right?
Yeah.
Here is the wall. I'm not working through it. I'm not climbing over it. I'm not walking around it. I'm just going to stay here for the rest of my life. I'm settling. This is it. No more. Some people live like that. You can actually spot it. You can spot them straight away when you see them. They usually, they're quite bitter in the way that they speak, that they behave, that they, look at the world, very negative usually as well. Straight away if someone has chosen stagnation versus, stepping up and choosing generativity in life. It's a completely different attitude and literally the look on their face is totally different.
Yeah, great. So as we're navigating midlife, right? When you're in stagnation, it's not so easy to pull yourself up and to move forward. So are there any practical tips? Like if you had to think about 2 tips, what is the first thing that you would say to somebody to do if they find themselves in that state?
Get to know yourself. That's always the first step, is be aware of who you are now. Know what values drive you. Know what strengths and what personality traits you have. Know what your drivers are, what your saboteurs are, what's draining you in life. Know what stories you tell yourself, because we all tell ourselves stories, right? Know what your self-limiting beliefs are. Get to know yourself. Know as well, and it's very important, know what brings you joy in life.
Yeah.
Every day, know what brings you daily joy. In my practice, I do a lot of work around a Japanese concept called ikigai. It's literally finding joy in daily life. And you'd be surprised how few people know what brings them joy in life. I'm not even talking about purpose yet, eh?
Yeah, just joy.
Doing?
Just a little happiness.
Yes, a little bit of a happy feeling. Very few people know that. But then, of course, knowing yourself, building some purpose in life is also part of that. So it's a very big chunk of work that they need to do, because to pull yourself out of the whole stagnation, it needs work. It's introspection, looking at, working with the inner self. And a second tip I would give them, actually, I can give 3. Would you mind if I give 3?
Fine, go ahead.
Okay. Self-awareness, the biggest tip I can give you, the absolute best advice. The second advice I can give people is to understand what a transition is and how to work through it, because we've got a change, which is the situation that happens to you, right? A divorce, the children leaving home, there's a change. But the transition is what comes after that, the emotional part of adjusting to the change. So learn to do that. You can do that, for instance, by setting a goal for yourself in life again, and opening up and being open to, excuse me, to, for instance, a new hobby or changes in life, differences, different things, different way of doing, different way of thinking, openness. And the third piece of advice is learn to see the beauty and the positive sides of midlife, because there are so many.
Yeah.
I can keep on talking about this, Althea. I could talk for another hour about it, but there's so much beauty in midlife that people don't realize. It's not only negative. It's not just, the decline and all the becoming old in midlife, for instance, you have wisdom to share.
Yes.
You can do that, it doesn't need to be big. It can be in your immediate surroundings. You have wisdom to share. You can build a legacy. Like that's
Yes.
one of the positive elements of generativity, right? Like building a legacy, leaving something behind, something of beauty in the world. And that can be literally physical beauty, a piece of art. That's possible. But it can also be like things that you have taught someone else. Maybe you have mentored someone and you've made an impression on that person. That's a way of leaving a legacy in the world as well.
Right.
There's so many beautiful things around midlife.
Yeah. I loved those points. I love them actually. So I'm in a very reflective mode because I'm saying these make sense.
Yes, absolutely. I just wish that other people thought about that as well, because as I said, it's always the negative associations with midlife and people immediately going on about the crisis, but there's so many other things that we should be talking about around midlife,
Yeah. Yes, Tamara,
Um,
we definitely need more people like you to be spreading this information, sharing this knowledge
I
about
try.
midlife. I
That's
really
why I'm
do.
here to help your audience change their minds about midlife as well. It's
Hmm.
one step at a time, one person at a time. It's fine.
Yeah. And I think there's not an embracing, well, I don't know it from your perspective, but sometimes we don't know how to help people who are going through midlife. And then because we have this, it's a crisis. And then we sometimes, oh, she's just going through a midlife crisis. So it's like it's shunned sometimes. You don't know how to support the persons. And it's just a revolving cycle.
It is, it is. If there's one thing that everyone in midlife needs, it's people around them who support them and lift them up.
Yeah.
The older you get, the more important your community, the people around you become. Having friends in midlife to walk alongside you, because they
Right.
go through it too, to walk with you is so important, Althea. They don't even need to say anything, just be there. Or they can just say, you know what? Me too. I feel it too. It happens to me too. And that can be enough. You don't always have to, as a friend, fix things or offer solutions, or
Yeah.
sometimes it's enough to just be there, you know,
Yeah.
and ask people what they want from you. That's always a good one as well, because a lot of people are either afraid to ask, but it's so useful to do, or otherwise they just jump in and they start, giving advice and, oh, you should do this, you should do that. But not everybody needs advice.
No. And sometimes all we need is just a presence.
Yes. So just ask
Yeah.
what someone wants from you. If you
Yeah.
think you can help, but you can help in so many different ways. Just ask.
Yeah. Yeah. So such a soothing conversation for me. Maybe this is my therapy session.
Okay, that's good.
So
That's positive.
yeah. So Tamara, what would be, one last tip that you would leave with the audience? We're talking about midlife and transitions. What's one last tip you would leave with the audience?
Um, maybe it's a myth I should talk about still, because a lot of people think that midlife is a reinvention. You hear that a lot, eh? You reinvent yourself in midlife. And that always makes it sound like you're becoming someone completely different. It doesn't need to be like that. For most people, it's not. And that's totally fine. Because I always say you can reinvent yourself if you really feel that urge to do that. go for it. But you need to know as well that you don't have to do it, because when you get to midlife, you're not actually starting over. You're building on what's already there, you know?
Yeah.
So it's not like you're wiping the slate clean and becoming a whole new person. You're just evolving, taking everything that you have learned from life and using it in a way that fits with who you are now. So don't throw away all that experience, the skills, the passions that you had, because they're not baggage. They're your foundation, and use it, right? Just use it, build from it.
Great. I think that was great advice and great tip that you have shared with us. Tamara, please tell us, where can we find you? You have a tool as well, a midlife guide. Tell us how we can access the tool and how can we contact you.
Yes, absolutely. You can find me through midlifecrossroadsacademy.com. That's basically what you can find. There are resources, some tools, free stuff to help you get started. You can also join me in a guided program called Transforming Midlife, where I'm basically everything that I've just discussed with you. We work through that together. You can find me on Instagram, Midlife Crossroads Academy, or on Facebook. You can connect with me on LinkedIn personally. That's all fine. You know, I post on a regular basis to share what I know, what I've learned,
Right.
what I'm learning from other people. So many ways to connect with me.
Okay. All right, wonderful. Tamara, it has been a great conversation with you. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Me too.
And
Thank you very much for having me. I really enjoyed this as well. And I hope that, you know, together we'll spread the word around mid.
yes, of
Yes.
course. Yes, for sure. So thank you again. That's a wrap on our conversation today about navigating midlife with clarity and confidence. And a big thank you to you, Tamara, for shedding some light on the truth behind an often misunderstood stage, right? Midlife, and for reminding us that midlife isn't a crisis, it's a calling, it's a reinvention, it's a redefinition, it's a reset, and it's actually a transition and a part of our lives. So thank you again. It was great, and we will be sharing this episode with our audience, and I know it will bring some value and transformation for them. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Althea. Thank you very much.